I'm
Um, so uh, this is something that Wilma and I have been working on, which kind of is in the same sort of zone, or at least the same headspace as what you just listened to, a song about losing someone slowly over time due to the forces of the universe having their way. Wilma, this is Grow. Do you want to talk about it a little bit before I play it?
just a little. So I had a friend who had MS, and it was this long, long journey towards her death, and she was
Maybe
amazing
pause there
about
for
it. And I,
because I saw some confused faces. MS means multiple sclerosis, which is a neurological disorder which slowly erodes your ability to be physically active in the world.
yeah. So she literally, stopped being able to use her legs, and then one arm, and then the other arm, and then she couldn't hold her head up, and so it was a really long process, but she was so amazing about it. And the little story that just where I want to go with two things. She was in a lot of pain at the end, and when I asked her what was keeping her going, what made her want to stay alive, she said, "Sometimes I look out the window and the sky is so blue." And that was enough to make her want to stay with us, because the sky was so blue. And then the other thing that the other inspiration for the lyrics came, she got stuck in the garden one time in her wheelchair back when she still had some mobility. She got stuck in her garden, and I for 3 hours it was like a 27-day. And I said, "You must have just been so bored." And she said, "No, I watched beans grow, Wilma. How many people have had the opportunity to be silent and quiet long enough to actually watch beans grow? I got zen with the beans," is what she said. And so she was my inspiration for this song. Anyway,
You know what's interesting, Wilma, is that we wrote this in the winter, right?
we did. Yeah.
And uh, how nice it was to have like a content reference to the time where things are growing during the time where things are dying. So
Yeah.
this song means a great deal to me. It's kind of like the flagship of me and Wilma's partnership,
Yeah.
and also the genesis of the name of the band, and an honoring of our friends, and also the genesis of a charity project, which we'll talk about after we play the thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, Luca, your room looks blue.
Yeah, because I have my LED lights on and they're blue, and I'm.
But what I'm saying is, Wilma was just talking about how her friend wanted to stay. But the sky was so
I'm so blue.
was blue.
I'm trying to just cool myself down while still having light, so you guys can see me.
Very good.
That's,
You're doing a great job.
okay, here it comes. Zen with the beans. Grow. Whoop, hold on. There we go. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
By the way, Emmanuel, this was recorded using the same keyboard that you own.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Blue sky, sky blue, is my pain with a pill or two. Sit you down here and take my hand, ease my path
Whoop. What happened?
to the promised land.
I'm sorry.
I could feel. I spent my time sitting out in the sun and getting sad with the breeze. Have you ever seen a Negro? I have seen a Negro. Tender tendrils wrapped around a wire fence. Do you ever take time to go slow? I have time, 'cause I can't go. These slender moments are the strength of my defense. It'll come, it'll be here soon. When that blue sky, it won't be enough. Grow a little bit, go to the moon, 'cause someday you won't be so tough. Blue sky, sky blue, ease my pain with a pill or two. Sit you down here, take my hand, ease my path to the promised land. 'Cause it'll be here soon. We're headed there to the promised land. It's gonna be here soon.
That was pretty awesome.
Well, thanks, man.
Thank
we
you.
done put a lot of work into that one.
That was fun. Thank
It was
you.
good. I liked it. I really liked it.
Can you send me a copy of that, Mr. Bellin?
Absolutely. Yep. So let's get into some of the questions here, through which I'm sure the concept of the charity project will come up through answering them. And we'll start with the first one, which came from Emmanuel. How does one exactly become a professional in the music industry? There are lots of people that are really good at playing instruments, but how about the probability of a person making it his/her full-time job?
Well, I have done music full time off and on for years, and I've also had lots of jobs that weren't music. I kept playing music part time. It's a really tough gig, and I think that the people I know who are doing the best at it, especially in a city the size of Saskatoon, are the people who really do a serious amount of networking and getting involved in the community, and whatever that community might be. Like, it could be a folk community or a jazz community or a rock, pop community. I think that networking, it's like pretty much any other job. Like you do the networking, buttloads of discipline. Like the fun part is playing the music, but there's all this other stuff that you have to do that involves organization and I had a drummer friend one time. We were sitting in a bar watching this band, and they made a mistake in a song that they were playing, and somebody at our table said, "Oh, they really screwed up there." And my drummer friend looked at the guy who said that, and he said, "You know what? They're up on stage playing a gig, and we're not. We're watching them." So they're doing something right, So going out there and just getting the gigs and organizing tours and being professional about what you do, showing up on time, uh, rehearsing before the rehearsal, so you know what you're doing when you get to the rehearsal. And then again, outside of really huge cities, you have to be really flexible about what you're doing. Like if you want to make a living at it, you need to be able to teach and play in different bands that are playing different kinds of music, because let's say Saskatoon, I don't think really has enough of a jazz capacity to keep somebody in jazz alive alone. Am I right about that, Brett?
Oh yeah. No city really does. Maybe New York.
That's what I'm saying. Unless you're in a huge city like New York, like I'm talking New York. I'm not even talking Toronto or Vancouver. I'm talking New York, where you or LA, where you might be able to spread yourself around enough to be able to play jazz all the time, or play uh, folk punk, all the time, whatever you're. But otherwise, you've got to just have that flexibility and maybe take gigs that aren't the kind of music that you necessarily like playing so much, But
I want to.
it's about putting your bum in the seat and doing the work,
Yeah.
and having the discipline. I know musicians who are way better than I am, like hands down way better than I am, and they are in their 50s and never ever going to get out of their basement because they don't show up for rehearsals on time. They're not professional. They don't do the networking. They don't, and building community. And this speaks to what Brett was talking about, our project. That's that networking, and it's fun. Like building community is fun too, right?
Hold on, before you get into that, because that's a fairly long conversation. I just wanted to make a note that 3 of the points that you made were previously made by our guest speaker on Tuesday that Luca was here for, but Emmanuel wasn't. That was Dave Anderson was talking in the same question as what does it take to be a professional in the music industry, and her one answer was, be a professional and show up on time and be prepared. Like any other workplace.
Yeah.
Just show up and be prepared. And the second one was be prepared to play any style of music, even though it doesn't necessarily personally entertain you. Just be open-minded enough to if you're hired or collaborating, at least, to be open-minded to the process of music making, regardless of the genre. And what was the third one?
Mine was discipline.
Oh yeah, you have to build a skill set to be able to participate at all. So your personal time, the time that you spend alone, becomes part of work. It doesn't take a genius to figure out how to behave in front of other people, but it definitely takes a disciplined person to learn how to behave when you're alone, and that means putting time into your skill set. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Let's pause for questions that relate to anything we just said, and if not, then let's go into the charity project. Okay.
Questions?
So
Sorry,
I started my career. I moved from being a hobby.
Hold on, Emmanuel. You said you had a question.
Oh,
Actually, just one very quick question. When did you start playing music then?
Oh, perfect. Well, that just goes right into the thing you're just about to say. So great. All right, go ahead.
I've always sang. I'm mainly a singer. I play guitar, not terrifically well because I don't have discipline in that. But with my voice, I have lots of discipline. I do my scales every day, and to keep my voice on, going. But I always sang and played guitar, and I would do like weddings and grads and that sort of thing, and never ever thought of it as a professional career. a friend of mine heard me sing at another friend's wedding and asked me if I wanted to join a band. And the band was based around politics. So it was more about getting a message out than it was about actually being a musician, right? But from that band, we got some notoriety, in part because we got sued by Sask Power for using their name. Which
I've never heard this.
we were called Sask Power, and Sask Power sent us a letter asking us to cease and desist using their name. Really, really. So
this is a CD.
my other background is in journalism. I have a master's degree in journalism, and so I know how to work media. And I thought, well, if you want to get some attention, here's this letter that Sask Power sent this little tiny band. Like, we were like 5 people who weren't even, like, no fame, no nothing. Let's use this. So I went to the media, and people came out to our concerts because they had heard about us, about this whole Sask Power thing. Anyway, Sask Power dropped we've got a lawyer, and the lawyer said, "Oh, this will be really fun. Let's bring it on, right?" And, yeah. And
that's fascinating, Wilma. I've never heard that.
Yeah, well, they dropped it, but it got us all this notoriety, way more than we deserved, because we were actually a really, really bad band. Like, we were not musicians. We were political people trying to use music to make a political statement, right? But in the process, so then we got some gigs at festivals around Saskatchewan, and then other people started to hear me, and luckily for me, I very quickly started to play music with people who were of much, much higher caliber than myself. And there's another, if this is an advice column, always try to play with people who are better than you, because you're going to learn stuff. And if and be a mentor to the people who aren't as good as you, like, be there for them to help them. But I always have tried to surround myself with musicians who are way better than me. Anyway, so then there started to be some, like, I was good enough, and I was playing with some really good people, and I started making money, and I was going to university. So I was really poor. So I was getting gigs and making money, and it was like, this is cool. And that was way back in the day when bars used to hire bands for 6 nights a week.
Yeah, this is something that might be news to everybody, but there used to be this thing called a front 3 and a back 3.
Yeah, and if you were good, and we were good, like some of the bands I was in, they were really good, you got the whole 6. And we would play. So you could make a lot of money if you played music every night for 6 nights. Yeah. I mean, a lot of money for then. And you still had time to go to school in the daytime. And so it's like, okay, there's money in this. It's fun. I'm learning tons of stuff because I'm playing with musicians who are way better than I am. I think I'm going to try and pursue this. And that I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Yep, it did.
Okay.
To summarize that stuff, and also to echo what Dave Anderson said on Tuesday, it's fairly essential that your enterprise is subsidized and your portfolio of income is diversified.
Yeah, much more succinct than mine, but yeah. And so one of the things, the bands that I was singing in when they weren't, again, talking about that flexibility, they weren't necessarily the type of music that I wanted to do. I'm a pretty good blues singer, and I did a lot of blues, but I don't really like the blues that much because it kind of gets boring after a while. Or don't say that, Wilma, they're recording. I just kind of found after a while that the 12-bar blues was sort of like, okay, I sometimes can't remember which song I'm singing because they all started sounding the same, especially when you do 6 nights in a row. So I wanted to spread out. And part of what I really like to do is writing these songs. And they tend to lean more towards folk and storytelling. So one of the things I would really encourage you folks to do is just like kind of take matters into your own hands, because we started a club called 23 Below, which where we just got folk musicians who were coming through from, Toronto to Vancouver or Halifax to Vancouver. And, it was all run by volunteers, and we would get an event license if we wanted to have it licensed, and a lot of it was just open to kids because we wanted to have young people there. So we wanted this kind of music, and we wanted a place to play the kind of music we were doing. And so we just started our own club. Now, I make that sound so easy. With tons of people involved, and it was really a lot of work, but it was also a lot of fun and building community. And the roots of 23 Below started the roots of some festivals up north that eventually became the Ness Creek Music Festival.
Oh, that's where that came from. Jesus, you were the architect of the Ness Creek Music Festival.
I'm one of many. Like I said, a big group effort.
Wow.
I was one of the organizers of the two pre-festivals and then it got moved onto the Ness Creek site. Both of the first ones were held at regional parks, and the people who were there to actually camp and not be at a folk festival didn't like it that much at all, because this festival happening in the middle of their lovely camping weekend. So we moved onto this private property, and that then became Gord Olson and another group of people. But we were, and that's all this community building from which came gigs and audiences and a fan base and meeting new people and meeting other people from other parts of the country who said, come to my festival in Oshawa or Canmore or whatever. And so that networking becomes much easier, and festivals are like a great place to network. And it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Like all of it was just so much fun. Because if you're not having fun, like any work, if you're not having fun doing it, go find another job, right? So,
Yeah.
Anyway, the long answer to a very short question. I'm done.
Okay. Well, there's more questions we got. That's 1 out of 4, but maybe we'll combine some of these into two.
Can I just say that's also that community building that built with community is how I got together with Brett.
Right.
Is building community around hospice, and I don't. Maybe Brett can explain to you what hospice is and what the Prairie Hospice Society is. But that's another one of my sort of, hey, how can we take this music and turn it into something bigger than just our band? So we connected with Prairie Hospice.
Okay, so we can actually we can address this by the question that I think this was Chris Elliott who asked this, who's not in the meeting right now. Said, what does it actually cost to put out an album these days?
Right.
And now remember, like Wilma and I are from Saskatoon, and there's a lot of privilege coming behind both of us. So we don't really have a good answer to this. Like we're a couple of educator musicians from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, who stand on a lot of privilege. So we don't really know what we're talking about in the big picture. This is not Hollywood, New York, London, Beirut level money and experience talking. This is just our own experiences. So this is a question that we can't really answer, but we can say what it took from our perspectives. Sorry, our experiences. So
I guess without. Oh, sorry.
There's another question that's implied here, and it's not only what does it cost to put out an album these days, but it's also how profitable is it to put out an album, because eventually you're gonna have to try to make some money back from it. So I'll start with the standard kind of industry answer to this, is that generally speaking, 1 million streams on either Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, Google Play, or other centralized sort of mainstream streaming systems, every 1 million streams translates to about 5,000 Canadian dollars. Every million streams.
Ooh.
Yeah. And that's not to
Yes.
all parties.
A
That's
million
just
for only 5K.
yeah. So that's to the artist, and then divided by how many people are in the band, and then how many people worked as engineers, promoters, etc. From the artistic side, every million streams from any one platform is about $5,000 Canadian to the artistic side, and not the legal team, not the distribution, not the pressing, not the artwork, etc. That's just the artist. So we'll talk about profitability in a moment here, but when Wilma and I went to make a record, we wrote our tunes, and as you saw from the screenshot there were 7 of them. There was about 32 minutes of music. Is that right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that tracks. Let's say half an hour of the music, which took about a year and a half to write.
A year and a half. Just for both.
Not as a full-time job, not like 8 hours a day, but like 1 hour a week for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So after mixing, recording, production, art, physical copies of the thing, because we actually put out CDs because our target audience is boomers plus.
People who don't game.
People who still have CD players. You know what I mean?
The old schools, okay.
Yeah. So
I still love CDs.
me too. I
those.
still do.
So ancient. Like,
Thank you.
are those round things
I-
that spins around? Like,
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's the thing you use in a PS4 to play games sometimes.
oh, that one. Okay.
Those are DVD.
Except except they play music.
Okay, yeah.
So
Makes
the
more
physical
sense.
production of these things is actually not cheap, mostly because who's putting out CDs these days. So all said and done, all of those things with no investors and no record deal on an independent label. Wilma, what did we say before?
17.
$17,000 Canadian, and that was to print what? How many CDs? 1,000.
Yeah.
So even if you charged $17.50 per CD, and we were charging what, 10?
10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we have 11,000 streams on all platforms now.
Yeah. So
we're not even close to breaking even.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have not put out the physical copy of the CD, but we were selling the physical copy of the CD. I think we have 200 left. I think I have 1 box, and Scott has 1 box, which I'm sure is lost by now. And,
gone and lost forever.
yeah, and I think the Prairie Hospice Society has 2 boxes of 50. So that's 100. That's 150. There's 150 copies out of 1,000 left. So that's what 750 copies times 10 is we've managed to raise $7,500 just on physical copies of CDs.
Wow.
Which again measured against the actual input of 17,000 is of course a massive loss. Now I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I knew we were going in taking a loss. So while this was definitely going to be a thing, and we're not necessarily monetizing it on platforms, the idea of making this a revenue stream was sort of silly. So how can we use the music that we're making and the product that we have to enrich our community? Enter the charity project. Your turn, Wilma.
So because my friend with the multiple sclerosis was the inspiration for the song Grow, and she really needed extra help at the end, and her partner and myself and one other person were trying to take care of her, the three of us, and it was really tough to find help. And so after she died, I thought, this is not good. I don't want other people to have to go through this, you know? And so I started looking into what kind of help is there for people like this out there. And I found this group called the Prairie Hospice Society. And what they do is they volunteer to go into people's homes and take care of them, so that, maybe so that their partner can have some relief from being the only person taking care of this, very needy person in a wheelchair or whatever. They go and do their grocery shopping for them, their companions for them, and they do this all on a volunteer basis. But I didn't know about them, and I couldn't find anything. I had to really dig to find out about them. So I said, these people need publicity, and that's my journalism background, right? These people need more publicity. And Brett and I need an avenue to sell our CD and get some publicity out about our CD and about the songs that we're making. Maybe we could hook up and form a union. So we made the CDs as part of the publicity. We've had these concerts called Divas for Hospice, and I know all these women. We started off as, we called it Divas from Caswell. I live in the Caswell neighborhood, and there's a whole bunch of women in that neighborhood, and we all know each other, and we've all wanted to sing together for years. And we jokingly called ourselves the Divas, because I think you can tell from my lack of makeup and jewelry and fur coats that I am definitely not a diva. Neither are any of these other women. And so we were laughingly calling ourselves these divas. And I called them up and I said, would you like to be part of this concert for Prairie Hospice to make money, and mostly to give them publicity, because it shouldn't be so hard to find that service, right? And so we set this all up. So we had the Divas thing happening. We had Brett's and my CD and that one particular song that you heard. And then we had the Prairie Hospice Society, and we started putting on these concerts, and we would have put another one on, except for COVID. And we've had 3 very successful concerts, and some of the packages, the very first one, with the ticket, you got a free CD. And I was lucky enough to have a sister who could subsidize that and use that as her charity donation. So to Prairie Hospice. And that's what I'm talking about, building community and sort of having that flexibility and sort of thinking outside the box about, how do I get myself out there? How do I network? How do I use my skills to benefit myself? Sure, like get that music out there, but also to benefit somebody else or to build community. And I think that this has been a really good project that sort of proves that it can work. Hey, Brett?
Yeah, I think so. I think our grand total is 47,000.
Yeah.
That's literally a year ago, the last time I calculated that. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Plus, and
It's
what
not
the Prairie.
about monetary value. It's about attracting volunteers, and also for the volunteers that are coming, and also the beneficiaries of the system for coming to the show, is like a celebration of the community that they're involved in.
Yeah. And I've had emails from individual people telling me that they did not know about Prairie Hospice except through that concert, and how they got a volunteer to come and help. And one in particular made me cry. It was her brother, and she got her brother a volunteer who came to help and made his last days incredibly better than they would have been. So, that's kind of cool. And we got publicity on CBC. on CT, like on radio and television, that we wouldn't have got otherwise, I don't think.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
there
But
you go.
again, the point wasn't to generate revenue for our own pockets. When we realized that that
No.
was never going to be an option in the small circles that we live in, it was a matter of how can we use uh, the product that we're creating to better the lives of the people around us. And it's a little bit personal for me too, because my mother-in-law worked in palliative care as a registered nurse for the better part of her life, and all she did with her life was watch people die, and uh, where they had no support system to be able to like sign legal documents or just enjoy their day with the support of another human being next to them because they were alone. That took a big toll on her, and she essentially became like surrogate children, surrogate parents, and so forth. And you know, the mental toll that took on her is like, what can there be something other than a registered nurse to do this? And this is what the society meant. So it's personal for me too.
Yeah.
Um, what this turned into in terms of the concerts, I'll share a little bit of this video here. This was from, whoa, shoot, what was the second one? That was the one with Teresa and Jen and Jillian.
Yeah.
Um,
The first one was with Eileen.
yeah, we didn't even, well, we barely filmed that one. It was like with a handy cam.
Mm-hmm.
This would have been 2017, I think, 2018.
So
Hey, let's play a short clip of that.
Prairie winds, please blow me home. It's time for me to be alone.
Well, that wasn't the greatest clip. I just kind of flash forwarded to something. Let's go with something more high energy here.
You, one of the ones that loves you in this life. This little life of mine. This grand old life, this life of mine. Keep it going. This life, this little life of mine. This grand old life, this life of mine. This life, this little life of mine. This grand old life, this life of mine. Beautiful. One more time. This life, this grand old life of mine. Oh, I messed that up. This grand old life, this life of mine. All right. One more time. Life, this little life of mine. This grand old life, this life of mine. This life.
Anyway, you can see there's like a whole bunch of musicians on stage that wouldn't have otherwise been on stage. It's a cool thing to get involved with. It's definitely one of the proudest things in my career I've been involved in. Outside of making music with the fine folks of Newtana Collegiate.
yeah. And one of the things that I should mention that I think Brett does really well is we do this as a charity and we raise lots of money, but we make sure that our musicians are paid well, our sound technicians are paid well, like that, you know, not millions of dollars or anything, but we pay. We don't ask the musicians to do this as a charity.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important too in terms of being a professional, because you undermine professional musicians when you play for free all the time.
Yeah, that's something I've almost never done in my career is work for free. It's time. It's a specialized skill set that almost nobody other than yourself has. Um,
And when I listen to the music that you two both did, like that song that you're both really really good. You will be asked as musicians and artists to donate your time to all kinds of things, and I can't tell you to do it or not do it, but just remember this. Have you ever heard of anybody asking a plumber to come and fix their plumbing and donate their time? Right?
nope.
You know, we're professionals, and you undermine people getting paid their due when you play for free. And if you really want to do the thing because you think it's a good cause and I really like it, ask for $50 or ask for $100, whatever, and then donate it back. That's fine. But just when people think that musicians and artists will do things for free, it means that we don't really mean anything and that we don't have a skill. So, one last question, is there, Brett?
Um, well, okay, well, yeah. There's two,
Oh, okay.
so I'll put them both to you, and your choice as to which one you want to do, because they both of these questions could be like an hour's worth of chat, but
No.
in no order. One, tell us a cool story about your time on the road, any interesting brushes with fame. And the other one is, what is your process for songwriting? Where do the ideas come from? You know what? You kind of already answered that one.
Yeah.
Talked about that enough. Any cool stories about your time on the road? Which it might be hard to do because you're only 29. I mean,
Thank you again, Brett. Cool stories about the time on the road. Okay, this is a kind of a bad story, but yes, I had many brushes with him. I met many people when I was on the road, and one of the bands that I played in, and again, talking about trying to make a living at doing this. I am not a huge fan of country music. No offense to anybody out there who likes country music. I am not a huge fan. I did sing on the road with a country band for a whole year. It was the most lucrative gig I've ever had. Country bars pay
what's the
really.
band, Wilma? This is news.
Oh, oh, you don't. It's embarrassing to even talk about. We were called Wee Willie and the Wild West Band, and I was on the
What?
road. I was on the road at the same time as Michelle Wright and Damien. Not names that you would know because you don't like country music. Anyway, but we were doing the A circuit. I was really in debt from student loans, and it was really lucrative to sing country music. And I can sing like anything because I'm flexible, and you should be too. Anyway, so yeah, I met lots of, but talking about being professional. So country music has this whole unto itself, but they have when you're on the road, they have houses that they house the bands in instead of putting them up in hotels
Yeah.
because it's cheaper to just have a house that they put you in. And but I was the only
Side
woman.
note, you guys have seen Buds on Broadway before, right?
Yes.
You know how there's like an apartment above it?
Is it where they house bands?
Yeah. They're,
Well,
they're all gross.
Just
I've had scabies twice, not from Buds, but from places like that, because that's what they hold you up, because they don't clean them.
no,
Oh,
it's awful.
Yuck.
And I was lucky because I was the only woman in the band, and so they would send all the guys to the house, and I got to stay in the hotel room, which was often never better than anyway. It's pretty awful. But one of my sort of, I don't know if it's a cool story, but I had a saxophone player and a guitar player who hated each other, and the place we were playing was literally 4 blocks from the house that they were staying in. But they had their instruments that they would throw in the trunk, and and they hated each other so much that I heard about this after because I got to stay in the hotel. They were fist fighting in the parking lot over who had to sit in the back seat and who got to sit in the front seat. Fist fighting.
Oh my god.
And that was and then the guy who was driving the car, who was a really nice young man, he was the drummer, and he came to me the next day and he told me about this, and he said, Wilma, can you do something about this? And I said, yes, I can. And I disbanded the band and said I would never play country music again. So I don't know if that's a cool story, but being professional, it comes back full circle to, like, how do you make it in this industry? Well, not by having fist fights out in the parking lot over who has to sit in the front seat for 4 blocks. I can tell you that. Okay. Anyway.
I'm sure they had much bigger beef than where their butts went in a car.
Oh, it was awful, Brett. It was just, yeah, it was awful. But I had some really good time. Like, I had some really good times playing music too. Like, lots of really good times. And just those moments, the Regina Folk Festival, thousands, I don't know, 10,000 people, 15, I don't know how many people. And the band was just right. Everything was just perfect. I don't know if you've ever found that spot in music. It's that occurrence when the crowd is right and the night is right and everybody in the band is just on. And
oh god, I missed that.
Oh, we played, and it was so, like, it was just magic, and we were so lucky. I mean, yeah, but it was lucky. It was magic. We were on from 9 to 10 on the Saturday night, and the 2 bands after us were, I forget who they were, but like really famous, big bands. And it started to pour rain just as we were getting our encore. And so those 2 bands, like, we kind of ended the night on a really high note. And everybody the next day was like, oh man, you guys were so great. But they didn't have the bigger bands to compare us to. So we kind of were it for the night. It was fun. And I miss that, and that's what I'm going to love when we get back out of COVID.
That kind of highlights one of the through conversations with these guest speaker things, is that I wanted to highlight, in terms of career opportunity things, or at least like part-time career opportunity things, like how great a city Saskatoon is to work as a professional musician in comparison to other major centers. I was saying to, I think it was well, maybe it was both of you. There's more people here. How many venues Vancouver has? And the answer is 0. I visit there regularly. I've worked there a couple of times in bigger venues, but like in terms of like local venues, like Luca, I think the other day we were able to list 10, and they were all only on the east side of Saskatoon. 10 local music venues that have regular live music, not now, but before. Yeah. And how Vancouver has literally 0.
It's a happening town. You're living in a good place to try and become a musician, if that's what your end goal is.
Or at least be able to practice as a hobbyist and get stage time and stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's we're not as small town as you think. There's a lot of great gravity to make that happen.
And supportive audiences.
Yes,
which is why we have so many venues, because the audiences are so supportive, and we're just so lucky. This is a music town. Yeah.
Wilma Groenen, my very co-Dutch friend. I thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure not only collaborating with you, but having you lend your voice to the next up-and-coming musicians, specifically the Void Master themselves, and Emmanuel John Lennon shirt. we know that your time is valuable, especially in this great weather. All three of you, and I appreciate you spending a little bit of it with me. So it's with that I'll wish you farewell. Unless there's anything to add. That's the magic word the teachers say when I don't want you to add anything. Any questions? And then
Someone just pulls out a list of questions they actually
they don't
have.
teach that in education college. That if you want the class to end, just say any questions.
Thank you so much for having me, and it was a pleasure. It was a real pleasure talking to you and listening to your song. It was beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, and there's lots more. I think there's been 52 since the start of the school year that's they've been contributing to directly, because as it turns out, when you start recording stuff and you start publishing it and you put it out, it tends to inspire other people. So Luca and Emmanuel, not only the things that you have contributed to directly, they have spawned other projects, but you'll never know what those are because who, you know.
Very good. Thank you for being mentors and go-getters. Way to go. Okay.
All right,
Good
it's,
night.
also, it's school in the morning. Let's have Emmanuel and Luca leave for a second, and then Wilma, I got something I want to ask you about. So I'll keep the meeting open, the recording closed. And for all of you out there in YouTube archive land, this is the symbol of the year. It means
That is right.
love, understanding, acceptance. It's followed by one of these.
Yep.
All right. Good night, everybody, except for Wilma. Happy Pride. Peace and love.
See you tomorrow.